Hello, we are back. Topher, I've got one question for you.
That Trey Smack.
You like that? You like that Kentucky win? How are we feeling after a 48-20 drubbing of the Wildcats?
Yeah, man, that felt pretty damn good, not gonna lie. I mean, what was it, three straight losses to Kentucky last 3 years?
Yes. Yes.
All pretty ugly. Last year get blown out. Year before lose just an ugly muck fest. Um, yeah, man, that's just good Florida football. Food for the soul, makes you feel good. They tried to make it miserable in the middle there, but still ended up doing the thing. So yeah, man. I mean, it's a continuation of everything we've been talking about for like a month at this point. And man, the between the bye weeks, what a great 3 week run this was.
Exactly, exactly. It's pretty incredible. I mean, like you said, I was rewatching the game this morning and it's pretty funny. They played so well in that second half. I kind of forgot how much of a muckfest it looked like in that first half for a while. Like going drive by drive on the Planet Gator shout out Telestrator. I'm like, okay, I'm liking some of these DJ throws, but like when do they start scoring? They did get 48. And it really was looking like it was going to be a continuation of the last 3 years where it's like, man, is it really going to be like a 13-9 loss again to Kentucky? Like, are we really doing this? And then they just took the game by the horns and really ran the score up on them. And like you said, this is sort of, I mean, besides the Tennessee game, which it is what it is, they've really turned it around and played so much better these past few weeks. Um, and kind of to your tweet that I saw from you, I don't know if this was Saturday or yesterday, where it's like the rapid improvement from this defense just makes those losses to Miami and A&M so frustrating. Because like I don't know if they beat those teams if they played now with how Florida's improved, but it's like at least it's certainly closer. I don't think you get punched in the mouth like you do against Miami, and I don't think A&M goes off because what I think A&M was up like 20 nothing or 27 nothing before Florida finally scored a
Something like that.
touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so, we'll talk about this Kentucky game a lot. But I think the most important part is we do have to temper expectations with a bye week and then Georgia coming up. Because I don't think that'll look pretty. I don't think that'll look like the continuation of what we've seen so far. So, just getting into the game, Topher, do you want to start with the offense or defense?
Yeah, let's start with the offense because I think that's the big headline. Obviously, DJ Lagway gets us another start. Graham Mertz down for the season. Hate to see it, but it kind of forces the next era. Montrell Johnson missed the game as well, so it was a double freshman backfield with DJ and Jaden Baugh running back, and man, they look pretty good. DJ is definitely a freshman work in progress. I think we definitely overstated his ability to do the little things and to do the underneath game, but it kind of doesn't matter when you can just throw absolute dimes 50 yards down the field all the time. Um, and his deep ball is so good, and it's such a weapon with these receivers. And the other thing is his ability to run. He's not Anthony Richardson with the ball in his hands. He's not that fast, but he is a good mover. He's a more dynamic rushing threat than Graham Mertz was. And it just changes the math. It changes the way the defense had to play him. Um, yeah, I mean, they were awesome. Jaden Ball, 5 touchdowns. It's kind of ridiculous. It's a little bit inflated by some gritty 1 yard scores, but still, man, I mean, they did the damn thing. And, I have more to say about some nitty gritty things with the offense, but it's just fun to watch the young players do what we were told they could do.
Exactly. And to your point about Jaden Baugh, as a Saints fan, it did give me shades of Alvin Kamara Christmas performance when he had the 6 touchdowns. Um, just great stuff. I mean, it felt like he was just going to score 10. Just kept finding his way into the end zone. And I guess DJ Lagway obviously is going to be sort of the focal point of our offensive discussion. And like you said, we may have under or overestimated how well he'd do in the short game, but frankly, I don't care. I mean that like if you look at the box score, like I'm looking at it right now, he was 7 of 14, 259 passing yards. Like he only completed 7 passes and he had 259 passing yards, which is like more than most of Graham Mertz starts at Florida. when he would go like 20 of 23. And I was texting a friend about this. Like, I really don't like I'm over the efficiency thing. Like, the dink and dunk works when you have just an all around incredible team. And even with how well the defense has improved the past couple weeks, we saw it against Tennessee where it's like that might just not be enough. Like, if you have DJ Lagway connect on a couple of those kind of passes against Tennessee, who knows if they score two more touchdowns and that wins you the game. And I know DJ Lagway kind of played pretty bad in that Tennessee game, so I don't want to like get retroactive here and be revisionist about how that game would have gone out. But I'm just saying, like, we've seen just so many dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk drives, and now Graham Mertz has more, or no, sorry, DJ Lagway has more passes of 20 plus yards than Graham Mertz this season. And I think he had it even more going into this game rather than what he did this game to then get past him. Uh, so that is refreshing to see a
Yeah, I
downfield
mean,
passing game.
what it does is it just manufactures explosives. Like last year and the beginning of this year, the offense, like it can, when it gets into a rhythm, it's pretty good, but there's no explosive element unless there's a weird blown assignment somewhere from the defense. With DJ, like you can just create explosive plays kind of out of nothing, or at least you can call up more explosive plays. I mean, I think back to the Miami game, there was a deep post one-on-one with Badger where Badger wins and Mertz just misses him. And we saw at least once a deep post from Elijah Badger down the field and DJ hits that pass. It's 50, 60 yards scoring time. You know what I mean? It's just the ability to create dynamic, explosive plays is kind of the key to modern football. I think most data will prove that. And the ability to have that in the passing game just it changes everything. Like, and to your point, you don't need the efficiency. Screw it. Who cares? It doesn't really matter in a big picture sense. Like you'd like to be a little more efficient again the big games against a Georgia, against a Texas. But also, if your defense plays fine and you hit a couple explosive passes, that changes the math and you're back to square one, right? Um, yeah, especially with this receiving core, which has just looked so good. Um, Badger's a vertical threat. DK's so good all around game. You got Wilson and Mizell who are really explosive with the ball in their hands. Just having a guy who can just chuck it and make stuff happen down the field with these guys, it just it changes what is possible.
Especially in the play action game. I mean, the fact that the play like so many of DJ's deep balls are from play action. And I mean, on top of that, you have the plays where it's kind of this RPO where it's not just is he gonna hand it off to Jaden Baugh? It's like, okay, there's now a third element. It's like he can either keep it and light it up down the field for like a 30-yard pass to Chamir DK or a Badger. He can hand it off to Jaden Baugh or Montrell when he's back. And, Jaden Ball's a violent runner, and we know what Montrell is. He's a very solid running back. Or three, he keeps it himself and he can take it up the field. Like you said, he's not Anthony Richardson, but he's still a very solid mobile quarterback who, if you're caught lacking, he's going to rip off a 15-yard run. He did it several times against Kentucky on Saturday. And that's the kind of thing that makes your offense so much more dynamic. And it kind of alleviates so many problems you have, especially on the offensive line, where if the offensive line is not necessarily holding up, that's still not great, but it's fine if your quarterback can run. It's fine if your quarterback can just quickly just launch a 40-yard nuke down the field. And if it's like, hey, if you tell your offensive line, like, we got to hold up for 20 plays or 15 plays because we need to run like a long drive. Because it's like, I mean, against UCF, that first scripted drive, I'd say the ideal Florida drive with Graham Mertz is like that, where it's like he went 8 for 9 with like 20 air yards. So it's a lot of just letting the wide receivers work in screens and then also running the ball. And it's like, man, you need your offensive line to hold up for like 10 plus plays. And frankly, I don't know how well I trust that with some of these SEC opponents versus, okay, if you can just hold up for this 140-yard bomb and then, hold up for like maybe three or four more plays to score this touchdown now that we're in the red zone, that makes it so much easier. And that's what we're seeing with DJ Lagway, at least, with Kentucky. And the thing about Kentucky is like they're a good defense. Like they have their issues offensively. Brock Vandegrift is frankly not a very good quarterback, and that is what it is. But I mean, they beat Ole Miss and they held them to what, 17 points? They held Georgia to 12, I think. Like they're a good defense. They're not the number one defense in the country, but it's not like it's a Samford, and it's not like it's some of these other teams we've seen, like a UCF. Like this is a very solid SEC defense, and DJ Lagway let it up, albeit just from seven completions.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the play action part of it because I think we're seeing the best version of this Billy Napier offense. I think it's proving what I think a lot of people, myself included, have said about Billy Napier's offense is that it's actually schematically pretty sick. I've really come all the way around on it as a scheme. Like I have some issues with Billy Napier like as an in-game play caller, and I think especially in the low red zone, there's some sketchy things going on. But just fundamentally, it's more of a pro style offense with a lot of multiplicity to it. Um, and I think you see that both with the downhill running game out of pistol and then complementing that with the play action game, and especially the vertical play action game. I mean, it's functionally not all that different schematically to like what the Saints were doing the first 2 weeks of the season. You know what I mean? It's these same fundamental concepts that we see from really good NFL offenses where you set up good physical downhill running game, you base things off a wide zone and inside zone and those kind of fundamental staple running plays. And then off of that, you get single coverage, you get favorable looks, you let your receivers win, and then you have a guy who can make the big throw down the field. And when you have all these pieces together, like this is what Billy Napier's offense looks like, best case scenario. And it kind of makes me scratch my head at why Graham Mertz was the quarterback they went after, because he doesn't do these things well. I think Anthony Richardson did these things well for the most part. I think DJ's doing these things well. I'm like, why? How does Graham Mertz fit into any of this? Is my question mark? Because he just doesn't have that explosiveness in the passing game to build off of the run game. Because then your safeties are a little more timid against looking for the deep pass. They don't crash as hard in the run game. You get more favorable boxes for the front five. They get more confident. It was creating a virtuous cycle against Kentucky. It was all kind of working in tandem, working as designed. And now with the deep passing game, not only is it working more efficiently, it has the explosiveness as well. So I don't know, it's just structurally, fundamentally, really happy with the offense and really what it's looked like the last couple weeks, but especially in this game against Kentucky.
Yeah, and like to that point, kind of talking about Jaden Bond and DJ Lagway starting as a duo, being the first ever freshman quarterback and freshman running back to start at Florida, in their history as a football program. It makes me think of this point. I was listening to Split Zone Duo's tasting menu episode this past week, and they were talking about Oklahoma, and they had CBS reporter Shahan, I don't know how to say his last name, but Shahan on, and he was talking about Oklahoma and how like they're such a puzzling team because it's Brent Venables talking about how there needs to be a rebuild, but then they also need to win now, and so he just plays all these older guys. So then when the freshmen have to come in, they're not prepared because like it's not been like a true rebuild because you're trying to win with older guys, but you need to build for the future with your younger guys. And it kind of feels like the same situation at Florida where it's like if we're trying to build towards something, if we're trying to build towards, okay, let's get to 8-4. Okay, next season let's get to 10-2. Okay, next season let's contend for the 12-team playoff. And, obviously that's a very oversimplification of trying to rebuild towards being a contending team again, but like in a sense that's sort of what you're trying to do. And it's like that's not going to happen when you're trying to like just sell out now with Graham Mertz and all these older guys. And I get he's on the hot seat, but it's also like we saw how good it can be. Like we saw like sort of the maximum the like what's the word? The full extent of what like Billy Napier's scheme can be offensively with these freshman guys. And it's like these are the guys he's bringing in to do this. And it's like why not just play them now? And it's like you have DJ, you have Jaden Baugh, you have young offensive linemen like Bryce Lovett now playing right guard and Najee Harris playing left guard, who are Billy's guys. You have wide receivers like Mizell and Trey Wilson, who like maybe Mizell more so is mostly useful in the screen game, but I mean Trey looked great on that one route down the field when he caught like a 30, 40 yard pass. So I don't doubt his ability to, have a more diverse route tree. And so obviously you can mix it up. Like I'm not saying bench Badger or DK because they're incredible, but I'm saying like you have all these young guys who are Billy's guys who look great. And it's like if you can win with that, and they are, I mean, DJ looks good in his two starts. If you can get to 7-5 and turn the recruiting class around, like you have a proof of concept of like your young guys show that like DJ can be the quarterback on a team that's like 10-2 and contending for the CFP.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think Billy Napier gets a lot of criticism for pretty much everything, and I think a lot of it's been deserved because of how bad it's been for the most part. But like the guys he's brought in are good. Like almost all of them have played well this season. Like you kind of have to throw the first game of the season out of the window. It's just a failure to prepare from the staff. But like, I mean, at this point, pretty much everybody he's brought in is his guy. Um, and they're good, like across the board. I mean, even the old guys are a lot of transfers he brought in. You mentioned Badger and DK, both transfers brought in by Napier this year, right? Um, Quarterback, running back, transfer, or guys he brought in the recruiting class. All of the running backs are guys he's brought in, right? There's no holdovers, there's nothing like that. And I mean, the same thing's true for the defense, which we'll get to, but like his roster building is good, maybe. It's just kind of young and it's just taking a second to realize. Like, I don't know. Obviously, I mean, we might talk about this later on. Like, it's definitely an overreaction to say Billy's off the hot seat, but I mean, these are tangible building blocks. Like, if you do finish 7-5, what that would mean is that you kept building and you showed it in the biggest games. And like, honestly, if they do that, I don't want to fire him because that means he's doing the thing and I trust it. And obviously, we can get to more to that later because there's other issues. But um, like the talent acquisition looks correct to match the scheme, and I think things are starting to look like they're supposed to look.
Yeah, I agree. And like that's the toughest part. And I mean, there's still one thing about Billy that really bothers me. But it kind of has less to do with the football field, so we'll talk about it later, when we do kind of get to that discussion. Uh, kind of talking more about the offense. I mean, I'll let you talk about this more, but I'll just say thank God Bryce Lovett learned how to play right guard. Even though Damian George with the block of the night, maybe he
Dude,
had
it's
that
the
one.
double pancake.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I'm like, bro, why can't you do this like every play? What's going on? But I mean, offensive line, even them, they're looking better. I mean, the team has improved. You kind of wish the team didn't already lose 3 games so far. Especially with how winnable that Tennessee game was, but it is what it is. They're what 4-3 and 2-2 in SEC play, and kind of is what it is. And you hope that they keep showing this improvement. And I think the toughest part is like now you kind of have this proof of concept, and there's a lot of things to be excited about. And they're going to hit the toughest part of their schedule right here in this next 3 game stretch, really 4 game stretch, I guess, just before you get to FSU, which woof, is all I'll say about that. But no, I mean, I just really liked what I saw offensively from the team. If DJ Lagway is going to go 7 of 14 for 300 yards every week, I'm perfectly fine with it. It's very funny that he didn't have a passing touchdown, but like they just kept giving the rock to Jaden Baugh and he just kept rushing in for touchdowns. So if we're in a situation where DJ ends the year with like 3,000 passing yards and like 6 passing touchdowns and Jaden Baugh has like 20 by the end of the year, I'd be fine with that just because A, I mean that'd be awesome and B, that'd be absolutely hilarious. If they just kept getting deep shots that landed at the 5 yard line, then it was just Jaden Baugh. Time to earn your money. Time to get your 30th rushing touchdown of the
Hey,
season.
he's running that Lions Jamal Williams.
Exactly. Exactly. It's pretty great. It's interesting. But yeah, do you have anything else you want to say about the offense, DJ Lagway?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to close out with some more offensive line thoughts. So I've given up on seeing five guys play, but what they did do, I think someone's listening to the pod because, like you mentioned, they switched which guards are going where. So they still rotate both guards, but now Bryce Lovett is playing right guard and Cam Waits will play a little bit of left guard. Whatever, bro. But but they all seven offensive linemen, including the guys we have doubts about, Damian George, like they all played really well. I really like how physical they were. I mean, we mentioned it just a little bit ago. I mean, Damian George on that counter play, just being mean, being nasty, running guys over, tripping people with other people's bodies. um, yeah, they were really, really good. And to the point of like looking towards the future, I love how good the young guards look. Specifically, I've loved Najee Harris all season, kind of quietly going about his business, looking really good at left guard. Bryce Lovett, he looked pretty natural at right guard for the most part. Certainly run blocking. I think he's definitely a guy you write in pen next year at starting right guard. Obviously, Austin Barber's great at left tackle. Has been great all season. Um, this was one of the best offensive line games Florida's had all in a long time. Probably since Dan Mullins last year. I mean, really physical in the run game, perfectly fine in the pass game. Most of the sacks were either they just outnumbered you with a blitz or DJ held the ball too long, and it's fine. It's not a big deal. There weren't that many to begin with. Really, really good offensive line performance. And obviously, we are right to criticize that group a lot because they haven't been good enough most of Billy Napier's tenure. Um, but just a really strong performance and a lot, I think, to look forward to from that group with what you saw.
Yeah. And I don't want to keep criticizing because they did have a really solid game against Kentucky, but I just gotta say, man, like when is Billy gonna give up the Cam Waits experiment? Because I don't get it. Like Damian George has not been very good, but at least he makes the occasional play. Like we just said, he had the block of the night, and like he's pretty decent at times. But it's like I really don't see anything with Cam Waits.
Well, I will say he was better at left guard. I don't know what it was. He had a couple of nice little blocks on the interior.
Yeah, but I will rebuttal that with I think he's the same year as Najee Harris, and Najee Harris is your guy.
That's
And
correct.
so I'd rather just not rotate and just play Najee Harris. Like, I don't know. It is what it is. That's all I'll say. They did play really good. I don't want to end on a negative note criticizing him. So it was a good offensive line showing. I am curious how it'll be against Georgia because I feel like whenever they're faced against like a disguised defensive front, things go awry. I mean, that's when I talked about James Pierce just kind of slowly creeping around at all the different points, and the offensive line kind of lost him several times in the second half, especially. So like when Georgia, I mean, they had an absolute masterclass against Texas's offensive line. And so I'm a little worried about what it'll look like 2 weeks from now. But that's 2 weeks from now. So let's talk about the defense. Topher, initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious to rewatch this game because I was kind of watching this game second screen while I was working. So I fully got to rewatch it today. And I was curious how they would defend the run, specifically counter. Florida's defense, for whatever reason, just structurally does not know how to defend counter and just general gap scheme runs. And it was interesting, they still were kind of bad at it. All of Kentucky's success in the ground game was on some kind of counter or gap scheme run. But what Florida's really good at right now is tackling. They're really, really good at tackling in the second and third level of the defense. So the same kind of plays last year we saw from Kentucky, where Ray Davis would go for a 75-yard touchdown. That's now like a 6-yard gain and then a really nice tackle from a linebacker. So even the bad plays aren't that bad because the tackling is so, so much better from the linebackers and the safeties. Um, and the front is pretty good. especially in short yardage, they were dominant. They were dominant in short yardage situations, which again, like I'm saying with the offense, like this is what it was designed to do. That's why you have all these cartoonishly large men in the middle is to be really stout in short yardage, and it worked. They had multiple stops on fourth or third and short. Des Watson was one of his better games as a Gator. Cam Jackson, really great again. Caleb Banks flashing again. um, all these guys making plays on the short yardage. So even when you give up those counter hits on first or second down, the stuff looks good. I still think I'm a little worried, especially for Texas. I think Texas still might score like 55 points on this team. But like there's some juice here and it's not so shockingly fluky good. It's just slowly building week over week. I think there's a lot to like. I think the other thing that I love is just the mentality. Um, there's just a lot of energy, a way more energy. They look more aggressive, they look more confident, and I think that matters a lot, especially on defense.
Yeah, I would like to issue my formal apology to Jack Pyburn. He's looked much better these past 2 weeks, and I was one of his biggest haters. So, Jack Pyburn, I apologize. Shout out to my guy Pup Howard. He has looked great again. He is one of my favorite players on the team. I thought he was going to be great transferring from South Carolina over to Florida, and he's looked pretty phenomenal. And I guess my one, this isn't even a criticism, it's just like a real bummer is Jason Marshall getting hurt. Like, I don't, his arm was in a sling, he was in street clothes, so I have no idea what the extent of that injury is. Hopefully he can come back before the end of the season. I have no idea. I just checked Twitter to see if somebody posted an update on him because I think Billy's press conference is probably happening right now or already happened. Uh, but I haven't seen anything. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he can come back. He's probably going to be out for a couple weeks just because he did have his arm in a sling, and usually that's not something that indicates that you'll be back next week. Um, which isn't great. Uh, we did finally get to see Cormani McClain though, which was epic. Cormani McClain season, we are here. Turns out when you have a guy who is like a top five player in his class, they're pretty good. It's not guaranteed, but more often than not, they play pretty decent, and he was really good. He he graded as their highest player on defense according to PFF. I think he had like a 90.3 or something like that, and given he only played like 3 drives, but still had a pick six. So and like a really solid pass breakup. So I was pleased with what I saw with Cormani coming in. Topher, do you want to talk about the Cormani McLean experience?
Yeah, I mean, happy for him, right? I mean, he's had kind of a wild journey. He kind of he took a bite of the Deion Sanders apple out of high school, and it kind of blew up in his face. I don't know. I don't know enough about the situation. I don't know if that's a Deion Colorado issue. I don't know if that's a Cormani issue, but that just didn't go well. Kind of ends up at Florida as sort of a cast off. I don't even know if he was a scholarship spot when he got here.
I don't think
Like
he is.
like a real just kind of zero risk for Florida and just kind of help the kid get back because you mentioned he was such an elite prospect coming out of high school. Um, and he's really toolsy. You can see the traits of a five-star guy. He's long, he's fast, he's aggressive, he's got good ball skills. Honestly, it makes sense that he'd go to Colorado because some of those defensive plays look a little Travis Hunter-ish. Not quite that good, but ish. Um, yeah, it's just really you feel happy for him, and you saw the whole team like Billy letting the team get a 15-yard on sportsmanlike because the whole team mobbed them and went absolutely nuts. Which I think that means shows a lot about what this locker room's like. They've embraced him clearly. They've embraced each other clearly. I mean, the vibes on that pick six, that's like the best Florida vibes in who knows how long.
They were great. I mean, you got the entire team mobbing, and then you have Albert joining in too. I mean, everybody. It was incredible, and it really is one of those things where it's like it was so refreshing to see because it's like I remember when Cormani transferred, a lot of people were clowning him because it's like, oh, his career's over already, and like I remember there were some rumors that were like he was already kicked off the team, and like that wasn't true, and like. I feel like he's just gone through a lot. He was in the doghouse in Colorado with Dion, and like again, I don't know if that was Dion or more Cormani, but it's like regardless, he was in the doghouse of that team for a majority of the season. And it's like for him to get that pick six, which was a really solid play, return all the way, and then the team just fully like an NFL defense type celebration, and Billy picking up the 15-yard penalty. Um, it was great to see. It was awesome. And uh, again, I don't know the extent of this Jason Marshall injury, but I imagine he might miss a couple games at the very least, just because of how it looked when it first happened. And so we're gonna see more of him, and I'm curious how he'll be as a full-time starter, or at least just more playing time. I don't know if he'll start or not. And I think for me, it's just like I'm curious how his size will do against some of the bigger receivers in the SEC. Like you said, he's very toolsy, he's very athletic, but he is like if you had to like really knock him for something, it's like he's just so skinny. Like he's so small. I guess not small, he's tall. He is very he's just very skinny, very lanky. And that can be really helpful sometimes as a corner, and sometimes that can come back to bite you. Um, but regardless, I'm excited to see him play more.
Yeah, and I think talking about the secondary as a whole, I think there's just a lot of flashing. Um, but I temper it with gonna need to see it more. It goes for Cormani, it really goes for the whole unit. Like I think there were plays to be had in this game for Kentucky, and Brock Vandergrift just whiffed or someone dropped it. Like guys were open. There were out there. And against a better team could be an issue. But I think the energy, the playmaking, the vibes, like it's all pretty good right now. Devin Moore is awesome. I've been team Devin Moore since his first start against Utah 3 years ago. Love that guy. When he's healthy, very good football player. Trick Bridges, man,
He's
how good
good.
is he, huh? What a great game. He got toasted on the flea flicker, but hey, man, it is what it
It's
is.
fine. I mean, the big thing about Bridges is like he wasn't even really playing that much to start the year, and it's like this guy was a starter on a Oregon team that was
Yeah. I
really
think
good.
like he was banged up. He had the targeting thing, but
Yeah,
like he's good.
he is and like there's a lot to like about the potential of the secondary. And again, that's such a bummer for Jason Marshall being a senior and finally having his breakout now that he's hurt, because it's like we've heaped a ton of praises on him like every episode, and it's like you have him. You have Bridges. You have, you know, Devin Moore's incredible. I love him too. His biggest weakness is that he's made of paper mache. Like, like that is genuinely his biggest knock. Is like not necessarily anything him as a football player, like skill wise. It's the fact that like it feels like he goes down every other play if like the ball is thrown in his area. And then, I mean, we saw Cormani come in and be great. So like, I'm not saying Cormani's going to be that every play and every drive from here on out, but it's like, man, like DBU's not back, but it's getting there. Like we've had so many years of just like pretty underwhelming secondary play, and they still make some mistakes, like you said. Like a better quarterback probably capitalizes on some of those mistakes, but it's like, I mean, I don't remember the last time I saw a secondary this good at Florida. I mean, they had 3 interceptions on Saturday, and that matched their total last season. In 12 games, they had 3 picks, and in one, they matched it. Like that's crazy.
Hey, Will Harris, you're allowed to keep tweeting the silly emojis if you're gonna do this, right?
Will Harris, bring on the Queen's Gambit. Let's go. Masterful Gambit, sir. Masterful Gambit. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, we've seen a lot of improvement on the line. I've liked the play of Jack Piper in the past couple weeks. I still am curious what it will look like without the presence of like a real game wrecker slash edge rusher once they get to like Georgia and Texas, who have better offensive lines and do a little bit of a better job of, not letting plays get blown up unless they're up against, a Texas playing a Georgia. Um, so I'm curious how that'll look. Um, I'm also curious. I'm gonna just say it. I'm not gonna believe Billy when he says that he's a group of coaches are calling the defense, because that's insane. I'm bringing the honey up for Austin Armstrong. Austin Armstrong, I'm pouring honey on you, goat. You're my king. I know you've taken so much flack this season and last season for the defense you were calling, but I think you're back. Cause like, dude, there's so if it's true, if Billy's telling the truth, like we've been talking about this past week, like he's the most galaxy brain coach I think we've ever seen. Like most teams have like so much dysfunction if you have like even just like co-coordinators. Like you look at Bama and you're like, what's going on with their offense this year? And it's like co-coordinators. And it's like I feel like anytime you look at a really good team that has struggles on one side of the ball, it's like, oh, they have co-defensive coordinators. Like, what's going on? Like, it really is one of the things where it's like you should have one guy. Like, you should have one offensive coordinator, one defensive coordinator, and then your head coach probably calls one of the plays on one side of the ball or the other. So then to then try and have a group more than two, multiple, three or more, like coming together, being like, let's play a single high safety here. Um, we'll have linebacker blitzing off the edge to like come to that agreement, and then like the defenses look the best they've looked all season. I refuse to believe that's true. And if it is, he really is the most galaxy brain coach I've ever seen. Because I don't think I've seen an instance like this where like a group of coaches are calling plays on one side of the ball or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that they probably have a process, and maybe it's just Austin Armstrong doing the thing. Maybe it's Ron Roberts makes sense in the booth. He can do the thing. I don't know. I doubt that there's a convoluted coalition. I think he's doing the kind of non-answer thing to just not make to make people stop talking about it. It'd be really funny if they're like having a big debate amongst like four people every
That's what
play
I'm
or
saying.
like
Like
every
that's what I'm
drive.
picturing. Like
That's
I'm
what I want
picturing
it to be,
like
just because it'd be so funny.
I'm picturing like Austin Ron, like Will Harris. Like I don't know who their defensive line coach is right now, but it's like I just picture them being like Will Harris being like, "Well, what if we ran nickel?" And then Ron Roberts is like, "What if we only had a three-man front?" And then Austin Armstrong being like, "Blitz, blitz, 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 blitz." Um, because like I don't know. I mean, it's probably more so what you're saying, Billy just kind of giving a non-answer. But like, if that's the truth, man, it's like that's incredible. Like that is like an incredible football feat on its own. You have like five guys on your defensive staff, just like you pick a play, you get first down, you get second down. If it gets to another series, if they are still ahead of schedule, like come in with the blitz call. You got it, pal. But I don't know. Anything else you want to say about the defense, Topher?
No, want to see it against a better team, but you have to say you very good signs post bye week. The last three games against admittedly dysfunctional opponents, three very good weeks.
Exactly. And, one of those, you did lose Tennessee, but I mean, they beat Bama, and Bama's dysfunctional too, but a win against Bama is still a win against Bama. Um, so, there's a couple of things I want to touch on. Do you want to talk about Georgia in 2 weeks? I don't want to touch on it too much because, like I said, it is 2 weeks from now, but like, I'm very curious what that will look like. And I don't mean that in the sense that like what will it look like in Florida trying to pull off an upset? Because I don't think that will happen. But like, are we going to get another like 42 to 20 year? Like Billy lost to Georgia like the same exact score the past 2 years. And I'm just curious what it'll look like this year. Where it's just rinse and repeat, or if like they will actually look competitive for at least three quarters.
Yeah, I think. Well, to put it bluntly, no, I think it's going to be the same. But I think it's specifically going to be like the exact same game we saw 2 years ago. Um, if you remember, that game was really cagey for like a quarter and a half. It was really close. Florida's defense showed up. Um, Georgia had some spurts. And then, Anthony Richardson in his first career start kind of pissed his pants a little bit, made some mistakes. Georgia goes up by a lot, and then the game's never really in question. I kind of think we're going to see that. Um, Obviously, I love DJ. I think he's going to be a great football player, but Georgia's defense, like you hinted at earlier, they're doing the thing again. If they can do that to Texas's front, they can certainly wreak havoc against the slowly improving Florida front. Yeah, I don't expect great things, but if Georgia's dysfunctional enough offensively and this defensive improvement keeps going, there's an outside chance of a Muschamp era slop fest. Um, but I would expect Georgia's probably gonna just be a different class still.
Yeah. I think there's a really good shot for Florida to not give up 42 points again. Um, I think Georgia's offense is still good, but like Carson Beck has looked really shaky in some of these games this year. Like it's been such a roller coaster. Like he looked bad against Bama in the first half. Like he looked atrocious. And then he like lit it up. And then he set like Georgia passing records against Mississippi State. And then like he looked really bad against Texas. Like they did not win that game because of Carson Beck. They won that game because their defense was phenomenal. And I don't think he's gonna have the same kind of really bad game like he had against Texas in the first half against Bama. But there are like he has shown that he has some weaknesses. Like he's not the perfect quarterback. And if Florida's secondary can do some things, then I think there's a chance where it's like, okay, you go into the third quarter, maybe it's only like 21-7, and you're like, do we have a chance here? And then they score two more touchdowns and you don't. But, is there a shot where it's like you don't get to halftime and you're like, well, we've got 30 minutes left of game time and it's 35-6. That's really cool, guys. But I'm curious how to look. Um, do you want to talk about Billy Napier's hot seat status first, or do you want to vote coaches off the hot board first?
Let's briefly talk about his hot board status because the way I'm going to frame it is like this is that I think I want to vote Billy Napier onto his own hot board.
Okay, I like it.
I I think we need to put keeping Billy Napier officially on the menu, not high up on the menu necessarily, but I think it's the last 3 weeks have been good enough to at least entertain the possibility. Um, I think the biggest problem is that the recruiting is like horrific at the moment. Um, but that also feels just like the staff knows it's cooked. So like TBD on that. Um, yeah, I mean, it's not, he doesn't feel nearly as fired right now, does he?
He doesn't. And that's the thing. And like that's to the point I made earlier, and you just said it. Like my biggest qualm is not necessarily anything on the football field. The defense looks like the best it's ever looked under Billy. Uh and the offense looks exciting with DJ, and there's certainly a lot of pieces that I really like Jaden Ball, like the guards, like Jake Slaughter. Um, the wide receiver room is speaks for itself. Like this wide receiver room could probably play for most teams in the SEC. Like I fully believe that. Like they're so good. They're incredible. And so from that standpoint, I really like this team, but like you said, the recruiting is just it's terrible. It's god awful. And it kind of leaves you in a place too where it's like a lot of these guys are committed, these top names. And so you either fill up the class with a lot of mid-tier guys, and we've liked Billy's talent acquisition so far, but it's like then you're kind of entering Dan Mullen territory of like, oh man, you really gotta hope he hits on these 3 stars and like low ranked 4 stars. And or he could go the Mike Norvell route, and it's like he's really got to hit the transfer portal hard and bring in a bunch of guys, which like there's been guys he's brought in who've been really solid, like Badger, DK, Bridges, George Gums at times, um, Cormani. Like he has brought in some solid transfers. Uh, but at the same time, with those guys, it's like that takes you a little bit of a just playing it out, like getting through it sort of learning process, which is why they looked terrible against Miami. It's why they looked terrible against A&M. And it's like, okay, he does that again. Let's say he hits on some guys. They're probably gonna have that same kind of like learning process because like the schedule is gonna be the exact same pretty much next year. And can Billy afford then another like 4-3 start because his guys are going to be good eventually, but it's going to take a couple games that you're just going to have to swallow. And it's like, is that great? Or it's like, could the transfers just completely not work out again? Because it's like there's no guarantee it'll work out. Because like, I mean, Mike Norvell had a really good transfer track record. Look at all the guys he brought in. they should have made the playoff last year. And it's like, okay, we see the track record there. He can't miss. He's like a transfer guy. And his team's 1-6 or 1-5 or whatever they are. Like they're not good. They're terrible. Like it's not even like they're not gonna make a bowl game. They're gonna win like 3 games this year. And so we can see how easily it can be like Billy hits on the transfer portal again, and this team is all of a sudden like, whoa, they're a dark horse for the CFP. Or we could see them miss, and it's like the same exact rinse and repeat this year, where we're 4-3, and it's like there are promising things, but it's like, man, you're 4-3, and that's just like not where you want to be in year 4 of the program. So
Yeah, I
Topher.
think that's all super fair. Um, I think the reason I think it all kind of combines together of just like he did enough in these 3 week stretch to unfire himself, but all of that can be undone if they get absolutely waxed the next 2 weeks. You know what I mean? You continue to show this the last 5 games of the year against that gauntlet. I trust the process. Even if the recruiting still kind of sucks, and I know you landed all those issues, I think if you win some big games, you're going to get some kids back on the fence. You're going to win some recruiting battles just because the program will have clear juice. Um, I trust the ability to hit enough in the portal. And again, this team's so young that if they have good vibes and they're all building together and there's not a lot of staff turmoil, they're probably not going to transfer a ton of guys out. You get all that, so you're going to bring back a ton of starters, supplement from some portal guys, build up some youth. I mean, next year you can win 10 games theoretically. If the best case, that's the all best case scenario. So that's why it's like a real wait and see. And if they go 3-2 down the stretch with a couple of big wins, get some
Yeah,
recruiting momentum, I could see it.
that's the biggest thing. I mean, these 3 weeks are really going to tell the story. I mean, obviously, don't lose the bye week, Billy. Um, but like we've seen so much promising stuff here, but you still have a freshman quarterback, and you still have a team that's like there's a lot of things we like, not a lot of things we love per se. And it's like you don't handle business, and it's like, okay, now the team's 4-5 because you lose to Texas and Georgia. And now the vibes are, right back to sort of square one, even if they look competent against those teams. And then it's like, okay, you're 4-5, you're 2-4 in SEC play. You have to win against LSU and Ole Miss and FSU. And I think FSU, they'll probably win it. That's not a guarantee, especially with Billy on the road against rivals. Um, but like LSU's really good. They look a lot better. Garrett Nussmeier looks like a competent quarterback. Like he looks good. And like Ole Miss is like, I don't know, but they're still a good program. So, you get those games at home, but it's still that's also not a guarantee that you'll win those. And so you just have to not have the letdown because we were talking about how great Billy was last year after that Carolina win and how great a lot of the players looked, and they were 5-2, and then they proceeded to lose 5 straight games. And so it's just kind of you've gotta halt the letdown. You just can't let it happen because in a very realistic scenario, you're 4-5 3 weeks from now. And that's the moment where it's like, are you going to let this happen again and you're just fully cooked? Or are you going to beat LSU at home and you're 5-5, and now it's like that changes everything? We'll have to wait and see though. We'll have to wait and see. I'm curious.
All right. Let's vote the rest of these guys out. How many people are left on this board?
Uh Probably like, I don't know, half maybe. I have a name.
All
I
right.
already I have a name pre-selected, and you're not gonna like it.
Oh God.
I'm voting off Jeff Brom.
No.
I think he's a good coach, but I'm kind of tired of it. Like, I think if Jeff Brom were to become Florida's head coach, A, I don't think he keeps DJ Lagway. And B, if he doesn't keep DJ Lagway, I'm really not satisfied with the quarterbacks he's brought into Louisville. Tyler Shuck, I'm sorry, man. I'm out. And like, he brought in a cow guy last year. And it's
Hey,
like, come
don't
on, bro.
disrespect Jack Plummer like that.
He was not very good. And I credit him for being able to win with very mid quarterbacks. But it's like He's happy in Louisville. Like that's his place. That's his school. He wants to stay there. So it's like you'd probably have to offer him a lot of money to get him to leave. And it's like, is he a guy who's like that good to pull away? And in my opinion, maybe he's just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. To be fair, the Jeff Brom thing, I love him, obviously. He's been one of my favorite guys for a long time. I totally get what you're saying. I'm not going to appreciate Tyler Shuck slander. He's better than he gets credit for. Um,
He's also what, like a sixth, seventh year
don't
guy though?
worry about it. I don't care that he's 25 years old with a wife and maybe a kid. That doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is he's fine.
It took him 7 years to become a fine quarterback. That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. We can vote him off the list. I feel fine with that. Looking at this list, I mean, we're getting down to brass tacks here. Um, Pretty much everyone I have left on my list looks like a guy I'd be happy with, more or less. I'm going to vote off the last name that really scares me, and that is uh the triple option but spread pioneer that is Jamie Chadwell. Um, the more I learn about him, like as a dude, kind of scares me. In hindsight, accepting the Liberty job at any point in your life is kind of a red flag that I should have accepted.
That's fair. That's fair.
But also just like, we've all moved past the whole Liberty Coastal thing. We can
Yeah,
let the Jamie Chadwell experience die.
I agree. Um, Also shout out. This is a reverse voting off. This is a voting up. I'll stock in on Kurt Signetti, man. They're
Sigs up.
cooking something, and I'm very intrigued by him. He is a name to watch for me.
Yeah, like if we look at this board I have left, so you have your heavy hitters, Lane, no reason to change him. Dan Lanning, no reason to change him. Marcus Freeman, no reason to change him. And then all the other guys are kind of doing the thing. Like John Summerall at Tulane, it looks correct to me. Like Jason Candle at Toledo, still solid, still fine. Kurt Signetti, awesome. Brent Key at Georgia Tech, fine. Rhett Lashley at SMU, doing the damn thing. So very intrigued. I think if Billy collapses, we've got the name here.
I agree. I would be very if I think Lane's still probably my top name, but if he doesn't go, I think I'd go Rhett,
Oh
to
yeah.
be honest. As much as like I know I just said like Kurt Signetti, I'm keeping an eye on you, but it's like A, I kind of don't know if he'd leave Indiana. He loves it. And B, honestly, more so the important point, he's very old. Like, like I want a guy who comes to Florida and like it's a long-term thing. And like Kurt Signetti's old. So I don't know how many years he's got left in him in coaching, unless he's gonna be like 80 years old stalking the sideline, in which I don't know how good of a coach he'll be by then.
No, that's fair. That is the actual concern for Signetti. I mean, this is kind of his last job, you would think, right?
Yeah,
Just timeline wise, but man, doing a great job. Indiana probably going to make the playoff at this point. That's great.
exactly. Shout out the Hoosiers. But yeah, anything else you want to add about the Gators?
No, I don't think so. We'll see after the bye week, but this 3 week stretch made me feel a lot better. It's good to enjoy watching the Florida Gators play football, right?
Exactly. The boys are fired up. I mean, the team is really rallied around Billy Napier. Like I said to you, I love that he's trying to good guy his way out of the hot seat. Like the team might have is playing well enough to get him there on its own, but I love that he's just adding on to the good guy nature of it with how well the team's rallied around him, and on top of the fact of him doing things like taking the 15-yard penalty to let the team mob Cormani and things like that. So, uh, the boys are playing some ball. Shout out Gators. So maybe we'll see 2 weeks from now when they play the Georgia Bulldogs. Thank you for listening to another episode.